I canceled my daughter's birthday trip because my boss called me at 1:32 a.m., whispering about a company emergency only I could solve. I thought it was loyalty. He called me family. I believed him. But 3 days later, I found out the project I sacrificed everything for had been handed to someone else, someone I trained. I didn't scream. I didn't quit. I disappeared. And because I didn't show up, he lost $200,000 in one afternoon. Still think silence isn't a strategy? Let me tell you what happened the day I stopped showing up, for him and finally for myself. The suitcase was already zipped. 2 swimsuits, 3 bedtime storybooks, matching sandals, and a hand-drawn card that said Mommy Alaska with a shaky crayon sun. I had checked the flight status, printed the boarding passes, and even scheduled my out-of-office reply for the first time in 2 years. It was the night before my daughter's 7th birthday trip, our first vacation together in over 4 years. Then my phone buzzed. The screen glowed with Patrick Monroe's name, CEO 1:32 a.m. I stared at it. For a second, I considered ignoring the call. Then I picked up. Emily, his voice was a whisper, urgent. We have a crisis. That investor deck. We just lost our financial model file. The presentation's in 30 hours. I need you. Only you can fix this. I hesitated. He continued, softer. Your family, Em. You've always had this company's back. I remember glancing at the nightlight glowing beside my daughter's bed. She was curled up in her Elsa pajamas, one arm stretched toward the suitcase she helped me pack. I didn't cry. I didn't sigh. I just walked to the kitchen, dialed the airline, and canceled everything. 3 hours later, I was back at my desk. That's how it always was with Patrick. He never yelled, never demanded. He didn't need to. He called me the heart of the team, our compass, the backbone. He told me I made things feel like home. In every all-hands meeting, I was the one he thanked first. She's the reason we survived Q3. She's family. That word again. At first, it felt good. After my divorce, the office had become my sanctuary. I stayed late, brought cookies on Fridays, helped new hires settle in. We laughed about team dysfunction over happy hours, shared Spotify playlists, and vented over Slack about bad clients. I thought we were bonded. I thought they had my back. I didn't notice the cracks, like the time I stayed until 1 a.m. to fix the server outage, only to see Patrick present my workaround as his own at the board meeting the next day. Or when the intern I mentored got promoted to lead a campaign I designed, but my name wasn't even mentioned. Or when I was praised for making sacrifices, but never offered a bonus or extra time off. It was all normalized, brushed off as startup culture. We're scrappy. We're one big dysfunctional family. But it was all conditional. I remember the day it started to shift, subtly, then sharply. It was the morning I received a handwritten note slipped into my laptop bag. My daughter's scrawl. Mommy, can you please not skip my birthday again? It's okay if we just eat cake at home. The paper was wrinkled, smudged with what looked like chocolate and tears. I kept that note in my desk drawer. I started noticing other things too, little things. One of my closest colleagues, Tara, suddenly stopped coming to lunch. Then overnight, her desk was empty, her name removed from our project drive. No farewell email, no LinkedIn post, just gone. When I asked HR, they shrugged. Tara decided to pursue other opportunities. But 1 week later, I found a copy of our company's NDA on the printer tray. Tara's name, signature, redacted details. Confidentiality clause, it read. Then I remembered something she said a month earlier. Do you ever wonder if he's testing us? I had laughed then, but now that laugh tasted stale. That week, during a stand-up, Patrick looked directly at me and said, "Not everyone's built for this kind of loyalty." He smiled, others nodded. I stood still. Later that day, a team member pulled me aside. "Hey, just so you know, Patrick's been asking around about who's truly committed. I think he's watching everyone." Was I being tested? It hit me all at once. What if this wasn't a one-time crisis? What if the call at 1:32 a.m. wasn't a desperate need, but a calculated move? A loyalty stress test disguised as a trust request? The suitcase, the card, the canceled memories. And now Tara, quieted, silenced. My fingers hovered over my mouse as I re-watched the internal training video we had filmed last quarter. Tara was in it, so was I. But in the latest version uploaded to the company drive, her part was cut, as if she'd never existed. My chest tightened. This wasn't a family. Families don't erase you when you ask too many questions. Families don't test your devotion in the middle of the night. Families don't steal your time and call it culture. I opened my desk drawer, pulled out my daughter's note. I looked at the clock. 11:58 p.m. I placed the note into my handbag, quietly shut my laptop, and walked out, past the open concept desks, past the glass meeting rooms where so many bonding conversations happened, and down the hallway where our team photos used to hang. All taken down. Micro cliffhanger. The next morning, Patrick emailed me. "Need you in the war room at 7 a.m. Bring your magic." I didn't reply. For the first time in years, I turned off my phone and let the silence speak. The war room was already full when I walked in at 7:03 a.m. Laptops open, coffee cups everywhere, Patrick at the head of the table like a general on campaign. He smiled when he saw me, motioned to the only empty seat. I sat, opened my notebook, nodded like always. He launched straight into it. "This is the $1 million rollout," he said. "We're going to lock down the investor deck by next Friday. Now, leading the campaign. Evan." I blinked. Evan. Evan was fresh out of grad school. Smart, yes. Charismatic, sure. But 2 months ago, I was the one who built the framework for this pitch. I wrote the strategy memo. I hosted the late-night calls. I even trained Evan on how to run projections. He looked surprised too, but not enough. Patrick continued. "Evan brings a fresh perspective. We need bold, disruptive. Emily, of course, will support where needed." The slide changed. It was my roadmap. The visual hierarchy I sketched out with markers at 2 a.m., alone in the break room. But instead of my initials on the corner, it read, E. Jameson, Strategic Lead. My pen snapped in my hand. I didn't say a word. After the meeting, Patrick pulled me aside. "Emily, I know this looks abrupt." I waited. He lowered his voice. "You've been loyal, always have. But I need to see who steps up when the spotlight shifts. Sometimes I test my people to see who's real." He smiled like it was a compliment. I nodded once. Got it. Then I left the room before he could say anything else. That afternoon, I sat at my desk, rereading the deck Evan had sent for feedback. My phrasing, my flow, my metrics, all recycled, no attribution. I highlighted them silently, one by one, like I was auditing my own erasure. And then something shifted. I didn't cry. I clicked on my system preferences and enabled auto-record on all Zoom calls. I forwarded every email thread about project strategy to a private Gmail address I'd created 6 years ago and never used. I searched Slack for the phrase "off the record" and set alerts. I updated my password manager. I started reading about whistleblower laws in my state. Quietly, casually, I smiled at Evan when he passed by. I said good idea during brainstorms, but I wrote everything down. That night, I didn't go home right away. I sat in my car, engine off, headlights catching the rain. I pulled out my phone and found the video from last year. My daughter standing in front of a cake shaped like a rocket ship, holding a sparkler and trying to smile. "Mommy," she said, "are you still coming?" She was 6. I was 37. That night, I texted Patrick that the presentation would be ready by morning, and I missed the cake. I played the video again, then again. Then I hit record on my voice memos and whispered to myself, "You're not doing this again." I knew how they'd respond. Patrick would smile. The team would celebrate Evan. HR would feign confusion. "We're all working hard. We value you. Don't make this emotional." So I didn't. I became efficient, detached, deadpan. I let Evan shine. I let Patrick test me. I logged every deadline I met, every deliverable I built that was rebranded under someone else's name. I didn't fight it, not yet. They didn't know I had receipts. One morning, I found another message on my desk. A post-it, no name, no handwriting I recognized. "He's done this before. She left quietly." I knew who it meant. Tara. I began mapping timelines when Tara vanished, when her lead project shifted to E-Team, when the client suddenly reprioritized pattern recognition. It wasn't sabotage, it was standard. I ran the metadata on our shared drive, discovered that most edits on my documents were made by Evan, but requested by Patrick. After midnight, multiple times, from his iPad. The company photos on the hallway wall had been taken down last quarter. Nobody mentioned it. I asked once. Patrick laughed. They were outdated, but they weren't. They were proof. I realized then that it wasn't just about loyalty. It was about control. Test the employee, replace them slowly, rebrand their work, leave them grateful for being included. That weekend, I took my daughter to the park. We sat on a bench watching a squirrel dig for something he'd buried. She asked, "Are we still going to Alaska?" I paused. "Soon." She smiled. "Will we take the blue suitcase again?" I nodded. "And this time I won't answer the phone." She didn't understand what I meant, but she hugged me tightly. That night, I stared at myself in the mirror. Same blazer, same name tag, same tired smile. But something had changed. They still thought I was the old Emily. The one who said yes, who stayed late, who canceled trips, who forgave quietly. They didn't know. I had stopped taking notes for them. I was taking them for me. I hadn't thought about Lila in almost a year. She'd been one of the brightest stars in our department. Sharp, witty, always the one to break tension in meetings with a clever quip. Then one day, she was gone. No email, no exit lunch. Her desk was cleaned out before noon. Patrick called it a sudden transition. The only thing that stayed behind was a sticky note on her old monitor. Faded ink, it read. "Take care of yourself, they won't." Last week, I tracked her down. It wasn't easy. I had to call 3 HR contacts, reach out to an old IT guy who owed me a favor, and finally a former project manager forwarded me a vague address. A clinic an hour outside the city. The receptionist didn't recognize the name Lila Chan. But when I showed a photo from our company retreat, she nodded and asked me to wait. When Lila appeared, I barely recognized her. Her hair was shorter. Her eyes, distant but not dull. She smiled faintly when I introduced myself. We sat on a bench in the garden. "Why now?" she asked. "I guess," I said. "I started noticing what you did." She didn't ask for details. She reached into her cardigan and pulled out a small envelope. No name, no seal. She handed it to me without a word. Inside were photocopies, emails, internal memos, a printout of an internal investigation summary with huge sections blacked out. At the bottom, in bold, Employee Behavioral Monitoring Protocol, confidential. I flipped to the last page. There it was, a list of names. Most I didn't recognize, but near the bottom, Emily Carter. Phase 1, Emotional Reliability Testing. I stared at the page so long, Lila touched my hand. "It's not just you. They do it to the ones who care the most." We sat in silence after that. I drove back in a fog, the envelope on the passenger seat like a weight I couldn't shake. That night, I opened my laptop and began researching. The documents mentioned a Blackwater initiative, a name I'd never heard inside our company before. But on an obscure tech ethics blog, I found a thread. 5 years ago, our firm had been named, briefly, in a whistleblower suit, alleging psychological stress testing on key personnel. It was dismissed, settled quietly, no press coverage. The thread ended with one chilling line. "The ghosts never leave. They're embedded in the system now." I logged out. The next day, I scheduled 3 meetings under pseudonyms, one with a labor attorney, one with a trauma-informed therapist, one with a forensic financial advisor. I posed each session as a client seeking hypothetical consultation. I spoke in general terms. If someone suspected psychological manipulation in a work environment, or if data suppression were systemic, they didn't ask for names. But I saw the flicker of understanding in their eyes. None of them looked surprised. I started documenting my own case more carefully. Using encrypted backups, daily logs, a private journal with time-stamped voice notes. It became a ritual, not out of paranoia but clarity. Then I reached out to 2 colleagues, Priya and Marcos. Both had recently been pulled from key projects. Both were showing signs, burnout, missed days, sudden silence in meetings. We met for lunch in a tiny cafe far from the office. We didn't talk about work at first. We talked about Priya's son's school play, Marcos's dog's surgery. I shared about my daughter's Alaska card, carefully avoiding any details that might crack me open too soon. Only after dessert did I say, "Have either of you noticed things shifting?" They looked at each other, then nodded. Marcos leaned in. I found my entire presentation, mine, on our shared drive, under a different name. Patrick told me it was a collaborative merge, Priya whispered. I got asked in my last review if I still wanted to be here long term. It didn't sound like a question. I pulled out the envelope Lila had given me and placed it face down on the table. "I think," I said, "we've all been played," and say. No one touched the envelope, but no one asked to leave. Later, as we walked back to our cars, Priya said, "You think anything will change?" I looked at her, at Marcos, at the late afternoon sun sliding across cracked pavement. "If one of us disappears," I said quietly, "everything might stay the same, but if all of us vanish at once..." They waited, I finished, and they won't know what hit them. That night, I sat at my kitchen table while my daughter slept upstairs. I poured a glass of wine, opened my notebook, and wrote one sentence. If I disappear one day, everything changes. Then I stared at my reflection in the dark window. And I smiled. Monday morning, 9 a.m. sharp. The war room buzzed with artificial confidence, coffee-fueled enthusiasm, fake smiles stretched tight, screens displaying the final investor pitch deck in full-screen mode. Patrick paced at the front of the room like a man about to unveil the next big thing. But one seat was empty. Mine. He glanced at the door twice, smiled to cover the twitch in his jaw. "She'll be here," he said, mostly to himself. I wasn't. My phone was powered off, my calendar mysteriously clear, and my desk pristine. No note, no email, no backup. But while I was nowhere near the building, my presence had already arrived. 30 minutes before the meeting, an encrypted file landed in the inbox of our primary investor contact. It was marked Urgent, Original Deck Versions. Inside, my annotated draft timeline. Financial models with time-stamped metadata, screenshots of internal revisions that misrepresented revenue streams, Slack messages showing Patrick instructing team members to massage metrics, a summary memo outlining strategic omissions for pitch efficacy with his initials. I sent it anonymously, no trace. By the time Patrick started his opener, the partner on the other end had already read through every line. Midway through Evan's voiceover of the market positioning slide, the lead investor abruptly unmuted and asked a question. "Can you confirm the revenue delta between the model sent today and the draft from February 12th? Silence. Patrick blinked. Evan stuttered. Priya looked down. I'm sure we can clarify." "No need," the investor said. "This pitch is terminated, effective immediately. Further correspondence will go through counsel." The screen went black. Nobody moved. Patrick looked around, desperate for a face that would echo his outrage. He found none. The room emptied quietly. By noon, legal was involved. By 2 p.m., internal communications sent a memo. "In light of recent confusion around data handling, we are reviewing processes." At 4:15, a financial blog posted a headline. "Tech Darling Faces Investor Fallout Amid Allegations of Misrepresentation." They didn't use names, not yet, but the screenshots would. And the source trail? That was airtight. I watched it unfold from a park bench. My daughter fed ducks nearby, blissfully unaware. My phone vibrated with updates from Priya, Marcos, even Lila. Each ping a quiet exhale. I didn't respond, just let it happen. Across the street, the skyline loomed. Our office tower looked unchanged from the outside. But I knew the cracks were spidering underneath. That evening, I parked across from the building, lights still on, silhouettes moving inside like ghosts in a jar. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt finished. Not victorious, not angry, just free. I whispered to the windshield, "I don't want this place to burn. I just want to stop choking on the smoke." Behind me, a taxi pulled up. Patrick stepped out, talking rapidly on the phone. He looked up toward the windows, then down, then saw my car. He approached slowly. I didn't roll the window down. He stopped 3 feet away, stared at me like I was a painting hung crooked. "You really did it," he said. "You think you've won?" I didn't answer. He stepped closer. "You think they'll protect you? They won't. You don't know how this works. You just nuked your own reputation. No one wants to hire the girl who cries sabotage." Still, I said nothing. His tone softened. "You and we were something. We built this place. You were my anchor, Em." My name in his mouth made my skin crawl. He leaned in slightly. "You've won for now, but trust me, you'll regret losing me." I rolled the window up slowly. He watched his reflection disappear in the tinted glass. I didn't drive away right away, just sat there, watching him walk back toward the building, smaller now, fragile. Inside, I imagined the scramble, PR calls, legal consultations, leadership panic. But the most damage hadn't come from outside. It came from the silence inside, from the people who stopped covering for him. Later that night, I received a text from an unknown number. "Thank you for not letting us keep swallowing it." I deleted it. No need for thanks, no need for anything. Because for the first time in years, I hadn't shown up, and everything collapsed. The fallout was fast, faster than I expected. Within 3 days, the company lost 3 major contracts. The investor who pulled out wasn't silent about it. He spoke to media off record, and suddenly journalists were digging deeper, connecting dates, screenshots, whispers. A week later, a report dropped on an industry watchdog site with a headline that didn't bother with ambiguity. Inside the startup that gaslit its employees and lied to its investors. I watched it unfold from a distance, inbox quietly flooded with messages from former coworkers, recruiters, even journalists. Some thanked me, some asked for comment. I didn't respond. I wasn't ready to be the face of anything. I had only ever wanted one thing: peace. I booked 2 flights to Maui and a hotel with no Wi-Fi strong enough to ruin it. It was my daughter's first time on a plane she remembered. She leaned against me during takeoff, clutching a new plush turtle she'd named Rocket. I closed my eyes when the wheels left the ground. It felt like my first real exhale in a decade. We spent the first day on the beach doing nothing that mattered. I let her pick the restaurant, the ice cream, the bedtime. I didn't check my phone, not once. On the 3rd evening, we stood at the edge of the ocean during low tide, the water barely brushing our ankles. The sky was painted in oranges and violets, the kind of light that makes you feel small, but whole. She squeezed my hand. "This is better than birthdays," she whispered. I smiled. "Yeah," I said. "It is." Then I knelt beside her and added softly, "I'm sorry for missing so many." She nodded like she'd already forgiven me 100 times. "I just wanted to make you proud," I said. "You too," she answered without hesitation. I think something inside me cracked then, and healed in the same breath. That night, as she slept with Rocket tucked beneath her chin, I opened my phone for the first time in days. A LinkedIn notification blinked at the top. "We're rebuilding from the ground up, and we need people like you. Let's talk?" I didn't respond, but I didn't delete it either. The next few weeks moved differently. I returned home to find the media cycle still humming. More employees came forward. Lila, to my surprise, gave a quiet statement through her therapist. Even Marcos posted something vague but pointed. Patrick? Silence. Eventually, the board forced him to step down. The announcement was sterile, filled with phrases like strategic redirection and commitment to transparency. But everyone knew. The justice wasn't loud. It was steady. It rewrote the air. A month later, I was invited to speak at a leadership conference in Chicago. The topic was burnout, but I changed it last minute. Instead, I stood on a stage in front of 200 strangers and said, "Let's talk about the invisible ways workplaces rewrite your worth." I spoke for 20 minutes, shared only what felt safe, enough to resonate. When I stepped down, 5 people waited to talk to me. 2 cried. 1 hugged me without asking. A week later, I published a post titled "To the Emily I Used to Be." I wrote about the night I canceled my daughter's birthday trip, about the moment I watched someone else get credit for my work, about the silence I used to swallow, and the day I decided to stop. The post was shared over 60,000 times in 10 days. I didn't read the comments, not all of them, just one from a stranger that said, "I thought I was crazy. I didn't know it had a pattern. Thank you." Then, one afternoon, I received an email from an untraceable address. No greeting, no sign-off, just a plain text confession. "I tested you, all of you. I believed pressure created loyalty. I didn't understand what it destroyed until too late. I see that now." My breath caught. It was Patrick, I knew. No one else wrote like that. Clinical and cold, yet aching beneath. I didn't reply. I didn't forward it. I didn't scream. I simply blocked the address. I sat there for a moment longer. Then I closed my laptop and poured myself a cup of tea. Later that evening, my daughter asked me to help her write a short speech for class about someone she admired. I expected her to pick her teacher or a cartoon hero. Instead, she said, "I want to write about you, because you didn't let people lie to you anymore." I hugged her longer than she understood. That night, lying in bed, I let myself ask the question I'd been avoiding. If I were her age, would I admire me too? I think, yes. I didn't burn the building down. I just walked out of it with my dignity intact and showed others where the door was. That was enough, maybe more than enough. The first thing I got rid of was the lanyard. It had been hanging near my front door for years. My badge from work, still clipped to a branded neck strap, like a medal I was too afraid to put away. It had survived job changes, new apartments, even the divorce. I had told myself it represented pride, but really it was proof. Proof I had mattered somewhere. I dropped it into the trash without ceremony. The second thing I did was unsubscribe from the corporate newsletters I used to read religiously at 6 a.m. Then I opened a new document on my laptop and typed 3 words, "Work Without Wounds." That became the name of the mentorship program I built. Quietly at first, then louder as the weeks passed. It wasn't flashy, just a virtual space for women to gather, share stories, and begin unlearning the guilt of not being good soldiers. I didn't tell them what to do. I just gave them permission to question what they'd been told. Every Saturday, I logged off everything. No email, no news alerts, no LinkedIn. Instead, I took a pottery class with my daughter. We weren't good at it. Our bowls were lopsided, our mugs wobbled. But we laughed, and that was enough. I watched her fingers shape clay, like she was molding a future that had nothing to do with survival. That's what I wanted for her, a life built around joy, not defense. At home, I began decluttering in earnest, not Marie Kondo style, not for aesthetic peace, just to make room for who I was becoming. I found an old plaque buried in a drawer, Employee of the Quarter, Q3. I flipped it over and saw the crack near the top where it had chipped the day Patrick handed it to me. I almost kept it. Almost. But then I remembered the day it was awarded, how I had to smile through a presentation Patrick delivered using slides I built, without my name. I dropped the plaque in the box marked Donate. No one would know what it meant, and that was the point. The house started to breathe. So did I. One night, my daughter crawled into bed with a book. Usually, she needed to hold my hand as she fell asleep. Ever since the year, I missed too many good nights. But this time, after the story, she rolled over, pulled the blanket up to her chin and whispered, "You don't have to stay. I know you're not leaving." I sat there a while anyway, watched her breathe, listened to the silence that wasn't empty, it was earned. That weekend, I opened the draft I'd started months ago. A letter to myself. "Dear Emily, you don't have to win anymore. You just have to keep the light inside you from going out. That's enough. Let the world burn if it must. You've learned how to carry water, and you've learned how to walk away before the flames reach you. Love me." I didn't cry, I just felt still. Then a ping. An email from an address I hadn't seen in a long time. Subject, "I'm sorry." It was from Jenna. Jenna, the one who had once been my closest ally, and later the one who had quietly passed my work to Patrick behind closed doors. She'd been promoted shortly after. I never said a word, just faded from her orbit. Now her message was brief. No excuses, no details, just a few lines. "I saw what you did. I know I should have said something then. I wasn't brave enough. I hope you are okay. I'm sorry for not standing next to you when it mattered." I stared at it. Once I would have written back immediately, offered grace or rage, but instead I just sat still. Then I clicked archive, not to erase her, but to place her in the past, where she belonged. That night, my daughter and I sat at the kitchen table with a map spread out between us. A new tradition, plan one trip each year, no matter what. She circled Alaska again. "You still want to go?" I asked. She looked up, grinning. "You said we would," I smiled. "Then we will." I booked the flights that night. No email alerts, no company calendar to cross-check, no boss to loop in, just a mother and a daughter and a promise. As I closed the browser, my daughter looked up from her coloring book and asked, "Can anyone cancel it this time?" I shook my head. "No, sweetheart, this time no one gets to stop us."